loved as a child. Now open them. If you're standing on the shores of Lake Bled, Slovenia, seeing the church-topped island and the castle-topped cliff, then you're already there. Is this the most beautiful place on Earth? I certainly think so, and I'm not alone. Millions of visitors have marveled at the fairy tale perfection of Bled, Slovenia. This podcast brings you the wonders of Bled, its people, places, foods, history, and experiences. Everything you need for a perfect holiday. I'm your host, Noah Charney, and this is the Bled Podcast. Is this the most beautiful place on Earth? Let's begin. The title of this episode, Romantic Bled, has an intentional double meaning. Bled is clearly a romantic destination, one so beautiful and memorable that it has been the site of countless marriage proposals and honeymoons. Lake Bled's allure continues to grow among couples worldwide. In recent years, it has been recognized as a top honeymoon destination. For instance, searches for Bled honeymoon surged by 100% compared to the previous year, placing Bled third among trending European honeymoon spots for 2024 and 25. In terms of asking for your beloved's hand in marriage, just ask Slovenian NBA superstar Luka Doncic. He proposed to his fiancée here and posted a photo on Instagram to his circa 10 million followers. In part inspired by this, I was involved in making a short cinematic film promoting Bled as a romantic destination. If you Google Bled Adventure of a Lifetime, you'll find it. It features me and two of my real-life close friends as, shall we say, actors, and I use this in the loosest possible way because none of us really know how to act. The concept is that inspired by Doncic's proposal, one of the friends travels to Bled in search of the perfect spot to propose to his fiancée. So we've covered Bled as a romantic destination with a lowercase r, but Bled is also romantic with an uppercase R. By this I'm referring to the Romantic era of art and literature, which is typified by paintings of nature's grandeur. Think of the mountain vistas of German painter Caspar David Friedrich in his famous work of 1818, Wanderer Above a Sea of Fog. A man stands with his back to us on a promontory, observing the majesty of a mighty mountain range beyond him, the bases of the mountains cloaked in mist. I'm an art historian, so I nerd out on such things, but it is truly an uplifting image, and I get a similar feeling of awe at nature's power and beauty when I look at the mountains around Lake Bled. So we've got romantic with a capital R and romantic with a lowercase r. The only interpretation of romantic we're missing here is Roman, Latin. There was never an ancient Roman colony at Bled, but it was part of the Roman province of Noricum. So let's add a third definition of romantic Bled just to round things out. For today's episode, I asked two locals to recommend their favorite romantic spots. One is Simon Plesteniak, a Bled native who spent many years living abroad as a photographer for National Geographic, among other top venues. He runs Villa Josephine, a beautiful building with apartments to rent, an ideal place for a romantic holiday.
For me, definitely the most romantic thing to do in Bled is going to the island with the rowing boat for two. Just like floating in the middle of the lake, walk around the island where Jiva, the Slavic goddess of life and fertility, had her temple. Just have a coffee in the shade of the trees. Well, couldn't get more romantic than that.
As you wander through Bled Castle, you might do a double take, as I did, when you notice that all the signs are in three languages. Slovene, which makes sense, English, which is understandable given mass tourism, and Korean? Curious, I asked about it. It turns out that a hugely popular Korean TV series, Black Knight, a romantic drama, was filmed in Bled and other parts of Slovenia. The show became a massive hit in Korea, sparking an ongoing wave of Korean visitors eager to experience the picturesque locations from the series. While it didn't create quite the tourism boom that Game of Thrones did for Dubrovnik, Croatia, leading to over-tourism, it still made a significant impact. I spoke with Daria Pretnar, who manages events and weddings at Bled Castle. She also translated the Slovenian edition of my book, Bledology, so she's multi-talented. She shared that many couples from around the world dream of getting married here. Korean couples in particular travel great distances for their fairy tale wedding in Bled. A retired US special agent even eloped to Bled for his nuptials. One Indian wedding saw guests forming a human chain, dancing across the castle courtyard in dazzling jewel-toned attire. Bled Castle is a sought-after venue for weddings, especially popular with couples from the United Kingdom, as well as events, concerts, cultural and historical performances, and more. But we're focusing on the romantic side of things. Here's Daria.
You asked about the romantic spots around Bled. Well, let's face it, Bled is beautiful, you know. Just now there's a month of love with several photo ops around the lake. They set up a swing in Veli Kazaka, and there's a heart just at the promenade. I think there's also something in Malazaka. So there are a lot of spots around the lake that just remind people how romantic Bled is. I'm not sure we the locals are aware of it, or I don't see it unless it is through the eyes of the people in love. Many couples who decide to get married here actually say that they visited Bled on some of their travels before that, and then decided that if they ever get married, it will be here. So wherever you actually go in Bled, it will be amazing, because most of these venues, wedding venues, romantic venues, have a backdrop of the lake or the island or the castle or somehow all three of them. And therefore, it's a money-back guarantee for fantastic photos. Most legal ceremonies, however, in Bled happen in the registry hall. The registry is located just above the lakeside promenade. And the hall where the weddings take place is next to the mayor's office. Our mayor likes to say that he has an office with the best view in the world. So the registry hall, so the wedding hall, has the same view. And this is what most couples are really, really surprised about, because after the ceremony, when the door opens, they exit virtually onto the lake. Other popular choices include Hotel Toplice and Bled Rose. The latter one has grown in popularity over the recent years. Its team is really working hard to keep up to date with the wedding industry trend, so a lot of weddings happen there. Apart from these hotels, of course, there are three spots that drive the notion of romantic Bled. It's Bled Castle, Villa Bled, and Bled Island. Obviously, the castle draws couples with its amazing views from the castle walls. If a couple wants something different, something that will make their guests from all over the globe go wow when they get to the upper courtyard, then Bled Castle is the place to go. Last year, there was a US couple. They invited about 70 guests. There was some complaining, when they were trying to navigate the steep ascent and all the stairs in their elegant dresses and stilettos. But when they got to the top, let me just say that they were more interested in the views and taking selfies than they were in the couple getting married. So this is the effect that Bled Castle has on the people who are in love, who are getting married, and also on their guests. Condé Nast Traveler has included Bled Castle among the 10 best wedding destinations in the world and said that it is one of the most stunning global locations for castle weddings. So just across the lake from the castle, there's another really popular wedding venue. It's Villa Bled. The building is like timelessly elegant. And it comes with 3 cherries on the top of this cake. There's a beautiful park with views of the castle where most, ceremonies for larger groups take place. Then there's the Belvedere Cafe, where weddings receptions are sometimes held. And there's this lovely spot on the other side of the villa where Luka Doncic proposed to his Anna Maria. And really made it timeless. So these are the most important things that Villa Bled has. From Luka's proposal site, there's a direct view of the Bled Island. And on Bled Island, the couples go if they want to have a really exquisite church wedding. There's an added challenge to that, In Bled, we believe that the groom should carry the bride up the 99 steps to the upper platform and the church. So it's not obligatory, The wedding is valid even if you don't do that. But if the groom is up for the task. That's really amazing. Other church weddings are mostly held at the parish church of St. Martin's. In recent years, we've seen an increase in symbolic weddings. What does that mean? Some couples decide they want to skip the bureaucracy and just tie the knot legally at home, and then they come to Bled for a symbolic wedding or a reception, a party, or an intimate elopement. In these cases, their options are much wider. Some get married on a Plitna boat, against the backdrop of Bled Island. Some get married on the top of a Soinica hill at sunrise, or at Bled Castle at sunset. And there are a number of other locations that have all the charm of Bled, but less of a touristy vibe. In Bled, there's a host of wedding planners and agencies who make sure that the best of Bled weddings find their way onto the social media. And from there, of course, into the plans and dreams of couples in love. Personally, I think it's very important that in 2022, the Republic of Slovenia has legalized same-sex marriage. It's really heartwarming to see how important marriage is for these couples. They definitely consider it a privilege and not an outdated concept. In May 2025, Bled Culture Institute and Bled Castle are attending, with some other partners, the EU Open Week at the Slovenian Embassy in Washington, D.C. This is also the week when the European Union and its embassies open their door to the public for a day of culture, food, music, and more. There are no tickets, no registrations, everything is for free. And we will be presenting Bled, the Congress Center, and the Bled Castle weddings there. And of course, this might be interesting for you, the visitors will also be able to live through Bledology and buy an ebook. Of course, provided we have everything ready until then, but I would really like to take Bledology in physical form with me for the visitors there to see it and also give them an opportunity to buy it. Bled Castle offers 3 wedding venues. It's the Castle Park, which is relatively new, the Lapidarium, and then the Knights Hall, which is also a plan B if the weather refuses to play along. Most brides arrive to the car park in a motorized vehicle of some sort, but some hire a fiacre, so the drivers of horse carriages, and then take a ride up to the car park, just near the entrance of the castle, in a horse-drawn carriage. There, at the car park, the wedding guests are met by a member of the castle staff in medieval attire, and they are escorted to the lower courtyard. This lower courtyard, there's a fountain or a well, and we call this area, the Cinderella's Corner. Why? Because, the way there is cobbled and it's so steep that it's practically impossible to attempt it in stilettos or some other fancy, expensive wedding shoes. So the brides get to this lower courtyard in their flip-flops or flats, and there they change into their proper wedding shoes. So when everybody is gathered there, the lord and lady of the castle descend the stairs to fanfare music. It's quite impressive, I must say, and we often get lots of wows. They then address the bride and the groom, greet everybody at the castle, say a few jokes, and then invite the wedding guests, the bride and the groom, to follow them to the upper terrace where the ceremony actually takes place. If the weather's great, that's under the lapidarium with direct views of the lake and the island. And if the weather's bad or it's very windy, we move the ceremony to the Knights Hall. After the vows and the kiss, the groom opens a bottle of sparkling wine in the old castle way, with a saber, that means. Then the newlyweds are usually off for some wedding photos, and their guests are free to explore the castle, go to the wine cellar, visit the printer shop, buy a souvenir or two, or continue the celebration at the Ezershik restaurant. So as you can see, there's really, really a lot of options, a lot to offer. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, there's even a small chapel where intimate or small church weddings can take place. In 2024, Bled Castle organized 44 weddings or vow renewals, and this season is pretty much sold out as well. It is getting a little bit complicated because sometimes the couples have some impossible requirements. Just the other day I got an email and they said, "I don't want tourists standing around and watching. Are you able to send them away, please?" wrote one of the brides. Actually, we can't do that. Bled Castle is a cultural monument of national importance and must be open to the public at all times. But we do make sure that the tourists keep at an appropriate distance and do not bomb your wedding photos. There is something that we've noticed. When people hear the wedding march or see a beautiful woman in a white dress, they are just drawn to that. But the interaction is actually quite lovely. They will clap, they will wish the couple the best of luck, so it's all in good spirits. And most brides are pleasantly surprised and actually enjoy these extra guests at their wedding. When we were working on Bledology, I told you about these interesting stories that we've seen, as I said, a former US secret agent getting married at Bled Castle. And there was a wedding which was attended by a lot of US Marines. They all arrived in, their white uniforms. They had some swords there for the exit of the bride and groom. There are fantastic photos. And, so perhaps not surprisingly, this was the only wedding in the castle where we didn't have to ask the other tourists to keep quiet. They just stood, watched in complete silence. So I guess the uniforms will do that. Every wedding is actually special in its own way. Sometimes we feel like we're living a show. Every wedding is like a movie. Some are rom-coms, some are thrillers. Some are. One was done in the Game of Thrones style. Actually, it's nice to be part of something that shows that every wedding is really special in its own way, and it's a reflection of the couple's story. So we try to assist them in creating the wedding day that they want, the wedding day that reflects their love story, their ideals, their hobbies, their interests. Yeah, it's a fantastic job.
There's something about traditional old-fashioned forms of transit that ratchets up the romance. Take a ride in a horse-drawn carriage, the traditional fiacre, around the lake while snuggling under a blanket with your sweetie. Follow it up with a ride to the island on a traditional pletna boat. At the island, some might try the tradition of carrying one's bride up the long flight of steps leading from the dock to the church. This is recommended only for the very athletic and well-insured. Ring the wishing bell at the church together with your loved one. Then maybe grab a fancy dinner at one of the elegant restaurants on the lake, like Restaurant 1906 or Restaurant Juliana. Enjoy couples wellness at one of the many spas around the lake. Grab lunch at Restaurant Central, run by Sabina and Gaspar, a young couple who make wonderful food at reasonable prices. You must try their pistachio and white chocolate cheesecake. Consider a couple's cooking class led by couple Nico and Petra of the Bled cooking class. So you see, there's no shortage of activities for couples. I've only named a few, and there are many more that you'll find in the book Bledology. Next time you're on the lookout for a super romantic destination, consider visiting Lake Bled. You can't spell Slovenia without the word love, and you can't spell doubled without Bled. Maybe this is a stretch for a tourism slogan, but I'll give it a shot. Love doubled is Bled Slovenia. Whichever way you like your romance, with the R lowercase or uppercase or both, Bled is the place for you. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bled Podcast. Is this the most beautiful place on earth? The official podcast of the Bled Tourist Board. In each episode, we explore Bled and its surroundings. You'll find it all here in this image of paradise.